everyone. We're going to be sharing a brief PowerPoint with you today just to keep us on track with what we want to talk about. But if at any point you have questions or want to share something, share an experience, feel free to put it in the chat bar like Nicole said, or speak up and we can pause our presentation at any point. So we are going to try sharing our screen, hopefully. Okay.
It was just present and then you put that thing down there. Where is it?
Okay. Can you all see? What do you see?
We see your screen.
Do you see at all any notes?
No.
Beautiful. Okay. All right. So, like it's been mentioned before, we're going to be talking about coping with anxiety and increased stress in the year that is 2020. This year feels more stressful than most, and it seems like every day there's more bad news and there's just anxiety about what is going to happen next, a lot of unknowns. And so we're going to talk a little bit today about the difference between stress and anxiety, coping skills for both, and then give you some strategies for how to manage both of them.
Okay. All right, so we kind of got a brief introduction already, but we thought we'd just give you a little more info. So I'm Jenika. Like was mentioned, a third year in the clinical mental health counseling program here at NDSU, interning at the NDSU Counseling Center. We were going to mention some areas of interest we have, but we kind of decided we're both still pretty open to what we're learning about, and we're not really sure what we wanted to go into yet. But I have a real passion for working in areas of advocacy and specifically minorities, people that face oppression, rape and domestic violence victims is kind of the area of interest I'm kind of leaning towards. But like I said, I'm learning a lot this year through my internship and open to maybe finding something else that I would maybe like to work with in the future.
And I'm Courtney. I'm also in my third year of our program, and I am on a track to complete my school counseling program and clinical internship. I love working with students and find a real passion for working with students who have experienced trauma in their background, and find myself very drawn to the feminist perspective and really just about equality among experiences, and working with clients to gain a sense of control and power and confidence in the choices that they have. So, any questions so far? Okay. All right. So I think that the word anxiety gets thrown around a lot, especially on college campuses and high school and elementary campuses. And so we're just curious, out of those who are participating today, like when you hear the word anxiety, what comes to your mind? And these can be like myths or misconceptions, or really any connection to anxiety that you feel. And you can put it in the chat box or speak up. I'm just curious about where we're at on that. I see. Oh, dang. Worry, dread, stress, uncertainty, panic, stress, uncertainty. Okay, yeah, so a lot of similar experiences of feeling overwhelmed, not knowing what to do about it. Overwhelmed, there it is. Lack of control, that's a huge one. So I think the biggest thing that anxiety and stress cause is feeling like we don't have the skills to move past it or to overcome it. And so right now, when there's a lot that's out of our control, like for example, a pandemic, when it relies so much on the actions of other people and research of a vaccine, there's a lot that we can't do about our life experiences and circumstances. So it's understandable that anxiety feels higher in 2020. And amidst all of that, there's racial unrest, there's discussions about police brutality, there's an election coming up that feels very polarizing and stressful. And so all of these things, I think, hit college students a little harder because college students are in this phase of life of figuring out their identity, what's important to them, who's important to them, and it can feel all very, it's like a ball of stress and anxiety, and you're trying to learn. So we'll move forward. All right.
Awesome. So what exactly is anxiety? So it is a natural response to stressors, something that we all experience in our day-to-day lives. And it is something that initially has been a part of us as something that's adaptive, that our bodies felt that we need this to survive. And it's definitely changed over time as something that we don't need in all the situations it's being presented in anymore. So everyone, like it says, experiences anxiety from time to time. Stressors have changed over time, but the way we respond has not. So in the next slide, it will show some symptoms of anxiety. So thoughts racing, changes of your vision, dry mouth, heart beating faster, clammy hands or your hands get cold, tense muscles, increased sweating, breathing quicker and shallower, dizzy. So obviously, if you look at this list, the way things have evolved, these aren't symptoms that are needed to help you survive in your intro to psychology class or your first Zoom class. They are the same responses you'll get, but they're not exactly adaptive anymore. In the past, our bodies would respond with these because we were maybe outrunning a predator or, something that was adaptive to have that response in the past. But now our bodies, we don't experience those same things, and you would hope that we would have adapted to maybe have a different response, but we are still reacting to non-threatening situations in ways that our body makes us feel like we're being threatened.
Yeah, so like Jenika was talking about, our bodies are biologically suited to keep us alive. And that means that when our thoughts are racing, it's helping us quickly evaluate threats and make decisions to keep us safe. Our changes to our vision might give us a little bit of like tunnel vision to make certain things sharper and blur away things that are not related to our personal safety. Our hearts are beating faster to pump more blood and enhances our ability to fight or run away. Sweating cools our bodies down, and the quick breathing allows us to take in more oxygen. Like Jenika said, you don't need that on a day-to-day basis especially when you're on a college campus. Your physical safety, your ability to get food and water are pretty secure. And yet our bodies have struggled to figure out how to adapt to everyday stressors, as opposed to life or death stressors, which are much, much less common. So a lot of what we actually experience on a day-to-day basis is stress, as opposed to anxiety. Stress is a response to an environmental factor that you can identify. So stressing about a test, you can realize that this trigonometry test is something I am stressed about. I know why this is happening. Once you get done with that trig test, you find out you've passed, maybe barely, but you've passed. The symptoms go away because the stressor is gone. It's something we all experience at some point in our days, throughout our lives, and it can also be a source of motivation to keep us moving forward, to keep us performing at a level that is acceptable to us and feels good to us. Whereas anxiety can happen alongside of chronic stress or a stressful event, something that's traumatic, but anxiety continues to feel overwhelming even when there's no identifiable stressor. So true anxiety is what we experience when we've got control of our homework, we did well in tests, we have a fridge full of food, and we know what our weekend plans are, and yet for some reason we still feel those symptoms of anxiety. There's no specific reason. And so like I just said, they persist even after the stressor has passed. So the example I mentioned earlier is you've passed your trigonometry exam, but for some reason the rest of that week you still feel this sense of dread, you're sweaty, maybe your heart is beating faster. You've passed your test and yet you still feel anxious. So another way of explaining this is that this intensity at which we feel our symptoms compared to what is considered normal or expected is a lot higher. And so even though we might be dealing with day-to-day stressors like, when am I going to eat? There's traffic. A dog is across the street and I'm a little scared of dogs. We experience the same symptoms that we need to keep us alive compared to stressors of like minor to like moderate inconveniences, minor stressful events. Anxiety causes pretty significant distress and interferes with your daily life. And so you notice that your relationships are taking a hit. Maybe you start to withdraw from people. You avoid doing things and going to places you normally enjoyed because all of a sudden you feel that sense of dread no matter what the situation is. And so that bottom point is that anxiety is perpetuated by avoidance, meaning that we start to avoid any possible situations where we might experience those symptoms. And because we now know that anxiety occurs when there's no identifiable stressor, now we start avoiding anything. And that's where anxiety is the reason that it starts interfering with your daily life, as opposed to identifiable stressors that we can move past. So this is a very famous theory of anxiety management through stress reduction. So this theory states that there are levels of stress that can be adaptive and also maladaptive. So when we have really low levels of stress, usually it's because we might be bored, we're seeking improvement, nothing is really pushing us outside of our comfort zone, but we're calm. When we're feeling stress, our levels of feeling energized, of feeling focused, we're doing work that feels important to us and yet challenges us. That's where stress can be your optimal performance. So like Jenika and I are currently studying for our comprehensive exams for the program, which are exams that determine whether or not we can become practicing counselors. And so we've both experienced that level of studying and a minor level of stress that keep us motivated to do well on those tests, because we know that we need that in order to feel prepared. Now, if either of us were starting to feel exhaustion, fatigue, our physical health starts to take a hit, we are burning out, we're sleeping more than usual, we're not eating, those are levels of stress that are now maladaptive. That starts to get in the territory of anxiety because our physical and mental symptoms are no longer just related to tests and studying. Does anyone have any questions about that? I just talked at you a lot and got kind of technical. Are we tracking? Does it make sense? Okay, I see Dr. Nelson, so let's see here. Yes, all right, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna do this. Okay.
Yeah, so some general self-care practices that you can incorporate into your life when you're feeling some of these symptoms, whether it be stress or anxiety. A lot of these may be pretty redundant to some people. They get a lot of self-care messages. I feel like it's a very popular topic nowadays, but maintaining healthy sleeping habits. So most people need between 7 to 9 hours per night. I know that can seem daunting as a student or professional to find time in your life for that many hours of sleep, but it can definitely impact your performance, and you will see the benefits of that if you make that a part of your routine. And I just want to make a quick clarification about self-care. It's not just commercialized practices, painting your nails, doing face masks, watching Netflix, BuzzFeed lists that tell you things like taking a bubble bath is going to fix your life. These are things that you can take care of your whole self as a human. So doing your laundry, keeping your house clean, managing your finances. So like paying a bill can be viewed as self-care. So some other things: eat regularly and healthy meals to keep your body energized. Exercise can always help, whether that's just taking a walk or doing some strenuous activity. Monitor your drug and alcohol use. Don't abuse substances. Those can negatively impact symptoms of anxiety and stress if you're feeling them. Engage in fun and meaningful activities to avoid burnout. So it's important to have those things that you can look forward to in your days to distract you and keep your mind away from those things that could be causing the stress and anxiety. And easier said than done, but avoid procrastination. I know myself, I'm a chronic procrastinator in most senses, but getting things done ahead of schedule or on time always can help alleviate those feelings of stress, dread, anxiety, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think Jenika touched on a very important thing, is that self-care really is about taking care of the aspects in your life that keep you moving forward. And so maybe self-care looks like planning out what you're going to do for homework each night of the week so that you know what to expect. Maybe self-care is doing a little meal planning, and so that's one less decision that you have to make every day about what you're going to eat for lunch or dinner. And yes, sometimes it is like binge watching like a Marvel movie or a series on Netflix while eating popcorn, but considering self-care as like one-time acts often tricks our brain into thinking that those like tangible experiences it tricks our brain into thinking that if this I just lost my train of thought. It tricks our brain into thinking that like surface level actions will fix things, when in reality, and the like annoying truth is that when we take small actions to minimize the amount of unneeded stress in our life, that's where self-care actually can become very powerful, because you feel a stronger sense of control and confidence in being able to manage all of the things that you're required to attend to in life, all of your expectations and responsibilities. And I think that's something that is important to remind yourself, that self-care sometimes isn't so pretty, and it's not like this sexy idea, but sometimes it's the kind of boring actions you do every day that keep you feeling comfortable.
I read this thing, I believe just yesterday, about procrastinating and how by not procrastinating, we're taking care of our future self. So I think if you look at those practices that maybe are more commercialized, it may be good in the moment, but the other practices like keeping your house clean, paying your bills, going to counseling, those are taking care of your future self. And I think that's when you really can help distinguish what's self-care versus something that might just be a practice that'll make you feel good for a short amount of time.
Mm-hmm. And not to say that like sometimes you just need a bubble bath, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. Like sometimes it's okay if you just need to sit down and not talk to anyone and just sit in hot bubbly water. That's okay. It's just not gonna fix everything.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So in general perspective, like just to get to aware for audience as well as to me also, like meeting the counseling, going to counseling center and taking care of these self activities, like, going for yoga or doing like some fun activities that helps us to recover from the stress or from anxiety. So how it is different from physical doctor visit? Suppose if I got a fever, I went to some doctor, and that I can say easily to everyone, okay, I met a doctor, so they treated me and they have given me Tylenol, like this kind of medicine. I can freely, openly say to my fellow colleagues or to someone. Mm-hmm. But when I or someone met a doctor for counseling center or gone to feeling anxiety, and when we express this kind of words to the others, it was perceived in a different way. This is much more stressful than actually the person is already going through the little bit stress or anxiety, because these two are temporary, right? Stress and anxiety, it's not permanent, which we can deal with. So can you guide us and help us, for the audience also, how it is different? And if it is not different, how to, express that?
Yeah, you brought up a good point that it's something I think that we're all a little bit aware of, is the stigma of addressing and treating mental health versus treating physical health. We've widely accepted that going to the doctor for higher heart pressure or a broken leg, or even having a cold or the flu, you go to a physical doctor because we've had centuries of examples that can be helpful. But for a long time, mental health was viewed as a direct message that something was wrong with someone, that they have done something wrong, that they're broken, that they can't deal with things on their own, that they're not like functioning in society like we expect them to. And so you're right, it is a lot scarier to make an appointment with a counselor or with a therapist, because it means that you are essentially admitting that you need help with the thoughts that you're experiencing and your sense of self. And that's a lot scarier because it's a slower fix. And I think that's kind of where it comes down to, is in our society, we really like quick fixes to things, and we like concrete solutions. Mental health is neither of those things. It takes a little more time and effort. It means evaluating things that are not tangible. It means like evaluating your thoughts and behaviors and relationships. And those are things that don't have like an immediate fix. And so I think, to answer your question, because I haven't quite done that yet, I think the biggest thing is knowing yourself and what you need, and being okay with the idea that talking to someone about struggles that you're experiencing doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you any less of a smart student. It doesn't make you any less of a person. It simply means that there's a part of your body that needs some attention. And by normalizing going to a counselor, that's where we start to chip away at the stigma that you hear about in a lot of community conversations about mental health. Even going to a counselor for like, I'm feeling anxious about this test I have coming up, I'm feeling anxious about this class, how I feel when I'm in this class. By talking about it in a very normal way, I think it starts to change perceptions about what counselors do. We do not have you come into the office and lay down on a couch and have your eyes closed, and we don't hypnotize you. We simply just have a different set of skills to help you understand your experience in a new way, and for you to build maybe more effective skills to cope with the stress and anxiety of being a human right now.
So it's a regular visit. There is no difference between the other things, and we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. I think if we started to understand counseling as like a health maintenance, as opposed to a response when things get hard, it feels a little bit more approachable. Yeah.
I think health maintenance, I really like that word.
Yeah.
If anyone has questions and they feel anything low about meeting someone, counselor or some mental health, so yeah, it's everyone now can answer, yeah, my health maintenance is more important.
Yeah. Actually, I had a couple clients last week that almost felt bad that they set up an appointment, because they're like, well, I'm doing fine right now, but I kind of want to get ahead of any mental health concerns. And that's great, because if you come to counseling when you're feeling okay and confident, you actually might be able to gain some skills that stick in your brain a little bit more solidly than if you're coming in a time of crisis and the mindset that you're in is a lot more survival. Whereas when you come to counseling, when you're feeling a stronger sense of control, you're looking at how you can thrive as opposed to just making it through the day. Good question.
Looks like we have another question in the chat box. How does drug and alcohol use negatively impact anxiety?
Good question. Because sometimes it feels like a great coping skill. I'm going to think on an answer. Jenika, what do you have?
I think it's obvious to see that it can exacerbate all of those symptoms of feelings of like your heart racing, all of these symptoms when you're drinking, and drug use also. But I think generally it's a way of like blanketing these symptoms instead of addressing them. So I think it's just further pushing whatever you're covering up deeper down. And yeah, and I think every person's different. So I think, and I'm not a doctor, so it's hard to maybe say how it's negatively impacting people, but yeah.
Yeah, I think a good point is you're using drugs and alcohol to cope with stress or anxiety or trauma is numbing those experiences. It does not solve them. And if you get into like the neuroscience of it, continued use of drug and alcohol can impact the pathways and connections that your brain is making about certain experiences. And so at some point, you are going to understand and conceptualize everyday interactions with people, relationships with people, even just your role in society. You're going to start processing that a little bit different, because the way your brain receives messages about your interactions with the world around you will be impacted by those substances in a very real way. And so, you know, when you go out for drinks on a weekly basis, that's not what we're talking about. But when you're starting to turn to drugs or alcohol as the immediate response to those stressors, that kind of use is where your brain is going to like literally alter the way it functions. Good question though. Anyone else? Okay, so we've talked a lot about what stress and anxiety look like, what it's not. And if you're sitting here thinking like, Jenika and Courtney, fine, I know all of that, but I still feel anxious and I don't know what to do about it. One of the biggest lies basically that anxiety tells us is something called catastrophizing. And that's when it's like all or nothing thinking. Like, if I fail this trigonometry exam, I'm never going to graduate college. I'm never going to get a job, which means I'm not going to have money, which means I am going to end up becoming homeless. My family's not going to love me. Your brain jumps to these like kind of unrealistic conclusions and makes a bigger deal out of a smaller stressor. And so one thing with anxiety is to train your brain to challenge those unhelpful thought processes. So for example, a client I had last year, she's a high school student. She was very worried about a bad grade that she had received on an algebra exam. She had actually received a B+, but in her brain, used to having straight A's, that was a huge stressor for her. And when she walked me through where her brain went, I can understand the anxiety she was feeling, because she went from, I got a B+ on this exam, to my family is going to outcast me, because of the negative connection she made about what would happen if she received bad grades. And so challenging your brain and literally stopping to even write down what your brain is telling you about how a situation is going to end up can help you reframe that situation and understand it in a more like realistic context. Another thing you can do is make a list of things that you can control and can impact about a situation, and process that. And so, like we were mentioning earlier, there's a lot that we can't control, but each of us individually do have a set of skills and strengths that allow us to have a level of control in our day-to-day choices, and being able to take back those things that feel so outside of our control can be very helpful to minimizing those feelings of anxiety that are not related to a specific stressor. Another thing you can do is just take a break from consuming news and current events. I think I saw it called like doom scrolling, where you already feel really stressed about what's going on, and then you stay on Facebook, you stay on Twitter, and keep reading negative news, and all of a sudden the world seems completely terrible, and there doesn't seem to be any light, there doesn't seem to be anything to look forward to. And so just literally taking a break from reading the news and knowing that you are still a contributing member of society, you are still an informed person, even if you need to take a day from reading the headlines. They will be there tomorrow and more. There'll be more of them tomorrow. And it's okay if you aren't minute by minute up to date on what's happening. Of course, utilize your mental health resources. Even if you're feeling like, I feel anxious, it's not that bad. I don't know if are they gonna like be upset with me if I schedule an appointment at the counseling center because I don't have this like massive traumatic experience. I had a pretty good life growing up. My family is financially well. Come make an appointment. There's no problem too like inconsequential for you to make an appointment. We are counselors because we care about helping people feel more prepared and confident in their lives. We are not here to judge or compare problems. We are not here to rate how traumatic or stressful your life is. And so utilize the resources that are on campus, because I will tell you, counseling becomes a lot less free when you graduate. So take advantage of us. We are unpaid interns for a reason, because it keeps counseling accessible to you on campus. And avoid avoidance. If procrastination is in your blood, challenge that a little bit. Little by little, start to make a list of the things that you need to do and when you need to do them, so that you don't add on to your anxiety by having things to do last minute or late, or big projects that you haven't started or need to work with other people on. Think about why you're avoiding that thing. What's the worst case scenario if you continue to procrastinate it? What can you do to feel less stressed about a big looming project? And then last thing is practice exercises to ground yourself. And grounding and mindfulness simply mean becoming more aware of what's happening in your current situation, your current reality. And a popular strategy that I like to tell people is like sitting, closing your eyes, taking some deep breaths, and then writing down or thinking of 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can hear, 3 things that you can smell, 2 things that you can touch, and 1 thing that you can taste. When you start to shift your brain from maybe some circular thinking that anxiety is causing, and shift to like a tangible, this is what's happening in the here and now, it can quite literally stop your brain in its tracks from going any further into that tornado of anxious thoughts. So there's a lot more resources and coping strategies for what to do when you are feeling anxious. But these are some that you can do kind of in the moment, and that you have access to as a student here, and just in your ability as a human. So does anyone have any questions about those? Maybe clarification on what it looks like?
Could you repeat those exercises that you suggested for anybody that wants to write them down?
The like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can hear, 3 things that you can smell, 2 things that you can touch, and 1 thing that you can taste. So it's our 5 senses, if that helps. And I can type it in the chat if that would be helpful. That's not right.
I think it's probably just covered up.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Any comments? Okay. Go ahead.
I actually have a quick comment.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is Lindsay from the library. I can actually turn my video on here. We are holding a suicide prevention awareness event on September 24th from 12 to 2. I think you guys or the counseling center is aware of this, but we actually are giving out some bookmarks that have the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 steps on them. So if anyone wants to stop by and get them, otherwise we can also give some to you guys to have at the counseling center. I think that's such a cool tool that I've just recently heard about. So just a little note there to add.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Awesome.
Also, Brooke, we just saw your comment that no, being quarantined with your son and being a great parent doesn't mean you won't make 10 years someday. But that's exactly what like catastrophizing thinking looks like, is making these wild connections between things that otherwise unrelated. So
yeah, I had never heard that term before, but that is absolutely what my brain does.
Yeah.
Immediately when in a stressful situation, is I can't help but think about like the whole world falling apart. And the truth of the matter is I need to coach myself to just tackle, what do I need to get done today?
Yeah.
What's achievable. But yeah, it's been a rough start to the semester because I wasn't expecting quarantining within the first month.
Yeah. Being a good mom doesn't mean that makes you any less good at your job. That's okay. Did we miss anything?
I don't think so. This is just a list of resources. So here at the counseling center, we have a great resource of having a free online anonymous questionnaire about depression and anxiety. So you don't have to give away any qualifying information, and then that information is sent on to a counselor and they look at it and reach out with feedback on if they feel like it's something you should seek help for. So that's always a great resource. And then the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, always a great resource also.
Yeah, and one more thing I would add is that in Fargo, we have a local crisis hotline, which is 211, and that's through an organization called First Link. And that's a great resource to use, even if you're not in a crisis situation and it's outside of maybe your counseling time, or if you don't have a counselor. The people that they have trained to answer those phones are essentially just great listeners and can be a really great resource to talk through a stressor you're experiencing, a conflict that you have with a friend or a partner. That hotline is not reserved for people in crisis or experiencing like active suicidal ideation. I had a question, someone who doesn't feel personally anxious, but seems to take on the emotions of other people. First of all, that's an incredible superpower that you are so empathetic of other people's experiences, but it can be exhausting. That means that you're not only experiencing your day, but the day of everyone else's. I think something that we could both kind of acknowledge is, as counselors, that's something that we experience too. And I think you said it yourself, is taking a step back to help them, but also myself, is reminding you that you are not less of a friend if you don't have the emotional energy or the mental capacity to help a friend through a situation. And I think something that would be great if we all normalized is communicating with people and asking them, hey, I could really use a friend right now to talk through something. Do you have the energy to have that conversation? Do you feel like you're emotionally prepared to talk about this? And being willing to be honest with people and say like, hey, I have a lot going on right now, and I don't think that I can be a great friend to you or provide you with what you need right now. And so I think knowing that it's okay to prioritize what you need first, because something that we know really well is we can't help other people if we're not healthy. And so self-care is not a kind of an added benefit of having more time. Self-care is like an absolute need if you are someone that finds yourself helping other people through hard times. You're welcome. All right.